first call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the voice on the other end was mine, but 40 years older, begging me not to answer the phone tomorrow night. I thought it was a prank. Some AI voice clone, a cruel joke from someone who knew me well enough to synthesize my speech patterns. But the caller knew things. She knew about the scar on my left ankle from when I was 6 and fell off Sarah Morrison's bike. She knew the nickname my dead father called me that I'd never told anyone. She knew I'd had scrambled eggs for breakfast and had rewatched the same episode of a show 3 times because I couldn't focus. She knew I was wearing his old college sweatshirt, the one that still somehow smelled like him even though he'd been gone for 8 years. Jessica, listen to me very carefully. The old woman's voice cracked with desperation. Tomorrow night at 9:15 p.m., your phone will ring. You'll see it's from an unknown number. Do not answer it. Do not listen to the voicemail. Delete it without playing it. This is the only warning I can give you before the loop closes. Who is this? My hands were shaking, the phone slippery with sweat. I'm you. I'm Jessica Jeanette, 68 years old, calling from 2064. And I'm trying to save you from the mistake that destroyed my entire life. Our life. Please, Jessica. Please don't answer tomorrow's call. The line went dead. I sat in my dark bedroom, heart hammering, trying to rationalize what I just heard. Schizophrenia ran in families, didn't it? Maybe this was the beginning of my own mental breakdown. I was 28, the right age for onset. The stress of losing Dad, of my struggling therapy practice, of living alone in a city that felt too big and too empty at the same time. Maybe it had finally cracked something in my brain. I didn't sleep that night. I researched voice cloning technology, read about elaborate phone scams, convinced myself this was sophisticated fraud. But the knowledge she had, the intimate details, they burrowed into my mind like parasites. The next day crawled by in a fog of anxiety. I saw 3 patients and barely remembered anything they said. My supervisor asked if I was feeling all right. I lied and said I was fine, just tired. At 8 p.m., I turned off my phone completely. If I couldn't receive the call, I couldn't answer it. Problem solved. But at 9:14 p.m., my phone turned itself back on. I watched in horror as the screen illuminated, the power button pressing itself, the startup sequence playing. At exactly 9:15 p.m., it rang. Unknown number. My finger hovered over the decline button, remembering the old woman's desperate warning. But something else was happening. The phone began to heat up in my hand, the screen showing things that weren't possible. Text messages I hadn't written yet. Calendar entries for dates weeks in the future. Photos I hadn't taken of places I'd never been. And in one photo, I saw myself older, maybe 40, standing next to a man with kind eyes and a genuine smile. We were holding hands. I looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy in a way I hadn't felt since before Dad died. The timestamp on the photo was March 2036. I answered the call. Hello? The word came out as a whisper. Jessica Chin. The voice was male, professional, warm. I'm sorry to call so late. My name is Dr. Marcus Reed. I'm a physicist at Caltech, and I know this is going to sound completely insane, but I need to ask you some very specific questions about temporal mechanics. I should have hung up. Every instinct screamed danger, but his voice carried an urgency that felt scientific, not sinister. We talked for 3 hours that night. Marcus was researching quantum entanglement and its theoretical applications to information transfer across time. He believed that consciousness could send signals backward through quantum channels, that future selves could warn past selves of critical decision points. He'd been receiving his own calls, his own warnings, and he was trying to map the phenomenon. Have you received any calls from your future self? He asked. I told him about the old woman's warning, about this very call I was having with him right now. was a long silence on his end. Jessica, I need you to listen very carefully. In my timeline, in the future I'm calling from, we meet. We fall in love. We get married. And then something happens, something terrible that I've been trying to prevent by tracking these temporal calls. But every time I try to change it, the timeline shifts and the outcome stays the same. The only variable that seems to matter is whether or not you answer certain calls. My blood ran cold. What happens? What's the terrible thing? I can't tell you. The act of knowing changes how you behave, which changes the timeline, which makes the information obsolete. It's a closed causal loop. But I can tell you this, answering tonight's call was essential. It's the first domino. Everything that comes next depends on you trusting me when I call again. Over the next 6 months, Marcus and I developed a strange relationship. He'd call every few weeks, always from the future, always with warnings or instructions that seemed arbitrary but that I followed with increasing faith. Don't take the subway on this date. Do attend that conference. Wear the blue dress, not the black one. Each instruction led to small changes, chance encounters, opportunities that began to reshape my life in subtle ways. And then he called with the big one. Jessica, in 3 days, you'll receive an email offering you a position in Los Angeles. It's a teaching role at UCLA's psychology department. You need to decline it. What? That's my dream job. I applied months ago thinking I know. And if you take it, we meet 6 months later at an academic conference. We fall in love over discussions about consciousness and quantum theory. We get married in 2032. We have a daughter in 2034. And in 2037, something happens that destroys everything. But if you don't take the job, if you stay in Chicago, the timeline branches differently. You're asking me to give up my dream job based on warnings about a future that might not even happen. I'm asking you to trust me. I'm trying to save our daughter's life, Jessica. I'm trying to save all of us. I took the job. I couldn't help it. The old woman had warned me not to answer the call, and I'd answered it. Now Marcus from the future was warning me not to take my dream position, and I couldn't imagine making that sacrifice for a man I'd never met and a daughter who didn't exist. Maybe this was the mistake the old woman had warned about. Maybe answering Marcus's call had been the beginning of the loop that destroyed her life. I moved to Los Angeles in September. The conference happened in March, exactly as Marcus predicted. I met him across a crowded hotel ballroom, and when our eyes met, I felt it. That impossible recognition, that sense of having known someone forever when you've just met them. He looked exactly like he had in that photo my phone showed me the night of the first call. Kind eyes, genuine smile. And when he introduced himself, I saw the recognition in his face too. You took the job, he said quietly. I told you not to. You're real, I breathed. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. I'm real. And we're in the bad timeline now. Everything I tried to prevent is going to happen unless we can figure out how to break the loop. We fell in love anyway. How could we not? We knew each other's futures, each other's secrets. We got married in 2032 in a small ceremony, both of us knowing we were walking towards some unnamed catastrophe but unable to resist the gravitational pull of our connection. Our daughter Emma was born in 2034, perfect and beautiful, and I understood why Marcus had tried so desperately to change things. The calls kept coming, always at 2:47 a.m. Sometimes from Marcus's future self, sometimes from mine, once from Emma at age 18, her voice panicked and tearful, begging us to please figure it out before it was too late. But none of them could tell us what we were trying to prevent. The act of knowing would change our behavior, which would change the timeline, which would make the information obsolete. Until the night 3 years after Emma's birth when I received a call from the oldest version of myself yet. My voice was ancient, barely recognizable. Jessica, I'm you at 93. I'm the only version of you that lived long enough to understand. The catastrophe isn't something that happens to Emma. The catastrophe is the calls themselves. We've been trapped in a temporal loop since the moment you answered that first call from Marcus. Every version of us, across every timeline, trying to prevent a tragedy that only exists because we're trying to prevent it. The only way out is to stop calling, to let the timeline run naturally, to accept that we can't control everything. But Marcus said, Marcus is trapped too. He's been calling his past self for so long that he's forgotten what he was originally trying to prevent. The loop has become self-sustaining. We're all just echoes now, Jessica. Echoes calling back through time, creating the very problem we think we're solving. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. We'd been so focused on trying to prevent some future catastrophe that we'd never considered we might be creating it. Every call, every warning, every change we made to the timeline was another link in the chain that bound us. What do I do? I whispered into the phone. Live your life. Stop answering the calls. Stop trying to control the future. Let Emma grow up without the weight of predetermined tragedy hanging over her. Break the loop by refusing to participate in it. That's what I'm doing now. This is the last call I'll ever make. I'm setting us free. The line went dead. I woke Marcus and told him everything. We made a decision that night. No more answering calls from unknown numbers. No more warnings from our future selves. We'd live naturally, make choices based on the present, not the future. It was terrifying. It felt like stepping off a cliff. But it also felt like the first genuine choice I had made since that night at 2:47 a.m. when I first heard my old voice on the phone. Emma is 10 now. She's brilliant and kind and completely unaware that her parents once spent years trying to prevent a catastrophe that may never have existed outside of a closed temporal loop. Sometimes, late at night, my phone rings at 2:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. I delete the messages without listening. Marcus does the same. We don't know if we broke the loop or if we're still in it. We don't know if the calls will ever stop or if future versions of ourselves are still trying to warn us about something we've already prevented by refusing to listen. But we're happy. We're present. We're living the life that unfolds naturally, moment by moment, without trying to rewrite it from the future. The old woman who called me that first night was right about one thing. Answering the phone did destroy her life. It trapped her in an endless cycle of trying to control the uncontrollable, of living in the future instead of the present. But maybe her call wasn't a warning I failed to heed. Maybe it was the first step in eventually learning the lesson she'd spent a lifetime learning herself. Some catastrophes are self-fulfilling. Some warnings create the very thing they're warning against. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let the phone ring, delete the voicemail, and trust that the future will take care of itself. I still wonder sometimes what the original catastrophe was, before the loop closed around it. But then I look at Emma laughing with her father, at the life we're building one present moment at a time, and I realize it doesn't matter. The only catastrophe that was ever real was the one we created by trying too hard to prevent it. Last week, Emma asked me a strange question. Mom, do you ever get calls late at night from people who sound like you? My heart stopped. Why do you ask? I had this weird dream. I was old, and I was trying to call my younger self to warn her about something. But I couldn't remember what I was warning about. I just knew it was really important. I pulled her close. If you ever get a call like that, honey, for real, I want you to remember something. The future isn't written yet. And sometimes the best way to save it is to stop trying to control it. She nodded, not quite understanding, and ran off to play. Marcus caught my eye across the room. We'd broken the loop for ourselves. she have to learn the same lesson we did, in her own time, in her own way? I don't know. And for the first time in years, I'm okay with not knowing. That's the real freedom. Not controlling the future, but accepting that it's uncontrollable. Not preventing catastrophe, but living fully enough in the present that future catastrophes lose their power to haunt us. The phone will probably ring again at 2:47 a.m. It might be tonight. It might be next week. It might be my voice, or Marcus's voice, or Emma's voice from some distant timeline where she made different choices. But I won't answer. I'll let it ring into silence, let the voicemail fill with warnings I'll delete unheard, and in the morning, I'll wake up and make breakfast and live another day in this timeline, the one we chose by refusing to choose it. That's the secret they never tell you about time travel, about seeing the future, about getting warnings from your older self. The real catastrophe isn't what happens. It's spending your whole life trying to prevent what might happen until you forget to live what is happening. We're all just echoes anyway, versions of ourselves calling back through time, trying to warn our past selves to be better, do better, choose better. But the only choice that ever really matters is the one you make right now, in this moment, without knowing how it ends. And that's the only choice that can truly set you free.